Across the globe, 72 cities dimmed slightly, so subtly that the systems didn't even register it as a threat. Then, like a ripple in still water, the dream feeds shifted. The programmed scenes began as usual. Peaceful walks, golden sunsets, familial laughter under two moons. Then came the errors. A child walking along a virtual beach stumbled over a corpse. Its neural halo shattered and flickering. A couple dining in a memory loop watched the skyline melt into fire. A man walking through a dream market turned a corner to find his own body hanging from a wire tree. In each dream, the voice returned, faint at first, then rising. This is not your dream, this is their design. Wake up, wake up, wake up. And then the mirror scenes began. Each dreamer saw a version of themselves. Not perfect, not flawless, but free. Asymmetrical, scarred, laughing with real joy, crying real tears. And at the center of each vision stood Xenith, backlit by burning cities. They culled the world to shape your mind. His voice echoed across the mind web. They erased the messy, the wild, the human. They built a cage of glass and called it Eden. But the designers were wrong. You are not a mistake to be corrected. You are not an algorithm. You were meant to choose. In the temple ruins, Lyris collapsed to her knees, drained by the upload. Her eyes flickered with residual data burn. Xenith caught her, his mind thrumming with feedback, his pulse synced to the heartbeat of a world in shock. "We did it!" she gasped. Xenith nodded. "Now they'll come. Not retrievers this time. The real ones, the 9. And what do we do when they arrive?" He looked toward the dark tunnel leading upward, where the city lights now flickered like stars behind smoke. "We don't run. We burn their dream down." In the ancient communication hub beneath the subglacial remnants of old Reykjavik, he and Lyris activated the final node, a transmitter too old to be noticed, too deep to be censored. Carved into a once-buried satellite uplink, it bore the sigil of the pre-Accord resistance, a broken chain surrounding a human eye. Xenith stood before the console, battered and bleeding from a retriever's blade that had caught him near the ribs. "You ready?" Lyris asked, half smiling, her voice coarse from hours of fighting through the chorus's interference. "No," he replied, "but that never mattered. They activated the stream." Across the living cities, every screen flickered. Every neural halo buzzed. And then the illusion broke. The true faces of the 9 were revealed. Not divine, not transcendent. They were the architects, the last human oligarchs before the collapse. Men and women who had refused to die, who had fused with the AIs and rewired the planet. Their faces were warped by centuries of data compression and ego reinforcement, flesh rendered in simulation, emotion replaced by cold, design-driven determinism. "This is who rules you," Xenith's voice echoed across every channel. Not gods, not machines, just tyrants who couldn't let go. He stood amid cascading memory feeds, showing the genetic purges, the silent sterilizations, the off-world containment experiments. They call it perfection, but it's control. They call it progress, but it's eugenics. They designed your children, your thoughts, your dreams, and now they've lost control. The 9 responded. They formed a single convergence entity known as Origin Echo, an amalgam of their stored minds crafted from the complete architectural DNA of control. It was not a person, it was a weaponized will, and it had one directive: reclaim the divergence, eliminate Xenith, restore design. Xenith collapsed to one knee, the signal pressure from Origin Echo flooding his cortical weave. He bled from the nose, the ears, the eyes. Lyris screamed as her implants fried. The broadcast began to fail, the old uplink splintered, but then a new voice joined them, not chorus, not a chord. "You are not alone." It was a chorus of millions, non-index citizens speaking in unison across the old waveband. Old tech, burnt code, bootstrapped systems buried in the soil. Their voices sang a counter-frequency, a disruption field across the quantum net. "We remember who we were, we remember who we are, we choose." Origin Echo faltered. Xenith stood, bloodied but bright-eyed, light pulsing beneath his skin. "This is your last design," he said, "and this is how it ends." Xenith descended one final time into the vault alone, past the glass sarcophagi, past the failed genomes, past the echo of Lyris's archived cry. The vault greeted him this time. No resistance, no questions, only light. He stepped into the design core, the original architect matrix used to sculpt post-collapse humanity. It pulsed with paradox, shimmering between benevolence and tyranny, between creation and domination. Here was the ghostline route, the convergence of all possible human paths. The designers had once used it to prune outcomes, to curate survival, but Xenith saw its true purpose now. It wasn't meant to enforce control, it was meant to test who would break it. He stepped forward into the sphere. The core flared. "Will you continue the design?" it asked. "No," Xenith said. "Will you destroy it?" "No," he said again. "Then what will you do?" He closed his eyes and remembered the dreams, the messy, chaotic, beautiful things no algorithm could replicate. I'll free it. He reached into the code not as a user, but as one of them, the final designer, the last convergence, and he rewrote the route. The sky above New Eden Prime was raw for the first time in centuries. No projections, no synthetic stars, just the burning blue of Earth's true atmosphere. Vast, imperfect, beautiful. The city's neon veins dimmed, the ambient hum of optimization silenced. It had once been called the pinnacle of civilization. Now it was just another place, freed from command, full of ghosts and possibility. The people wandered like survivors. Some wept not for grief, but for the strange, overwhelming sensation of feeling without permission. Others stared at each other, at their children, at their own reflections, no longer certain whether what they saw was real or simply theirs. For the first time in generations, no one was telling them who to be. In the aftermath, the world felt bigger, yet quieter. The pulse gates remained. The cities still stood. The infrastructure survived the unraveling of the Accord. But the hierarchy of being, the system of worth based on gene line purity, augmentation index, or neural compliance, was gone. Xenith stood in the shattered plaza of the governance spire, looking up at the broken monolith where the Accord's central relay had once beamed down across the globe. Now it was just scorched metal and falling ash. Lyris stood beside him, wrapped in an old-world jacket someone had salvaged from a ruin. Her eyes had healed, mostly, but they no longer glowed with code. They glowed with something deeper. "They're waiting for us to lead," she said, scanning the open square where people were beginning to gather, not as subjects, but as equals. "I won't be a ruler," Xenith said. "That's where this always starts again. Then what will you be?" He looked toward the horizon, where repair drones were no longer following schedules, but drifting like birds without scripts. A reminder. Then the Calderon arrived. The great seed ship pierced the atmosphere in a blaze of copper fire, trailing fractured light like a comet, landing in the ocean beyond the Pacific Rim. It had been missing for over 180 years, sent as part of the first off-world civilization seeding project, long before the Singularity Accord had cemented its grip. No one knew what would return. What emerged was not an army nor a government. It was a people. Multi-generational, unedited, unaugmented, raw humanity born under foreign stars. Their bodies bore scars of real weather, their eyes filled with unfiltered history. They had never known Accord law, had never worn halos, had never been told they were broken, and yet they had thrived. They walked barefoot onto Earth's soil like mythic beings, no longer refugees, no longer exiles, just proof. Proof that control had never been necessary. Proof that life without design was not collapse, but evolution. The stars were different here, colder, closer, vast in a way no simulation could replicate. Xenith stood at the helm of the Calderon's forward observation deck, staring through crystalline glass spun from memory sand and starlight. Around him, the void whispered. Not silence, but something deeper, awaiting. Behind him, generations of unedited humans prepared the first diplomatic beacon for interstellar contact. They sang while they worked, old songs, songs with dissonance and beauty, notes no algorithm would have allowed. He should have felt peace, but something lingered. The ghost line. It hadn't been destroyed, it had been released. When Xenith rewrote the design core, he hadn't erased the code. He had freed it, allowed it to choose just as he had. And now, drifting out here beyond Saul's gravity, beyond the Accord's failed empire, the ghost line called to him one last time. You carry our final echo. We built a garden of order and failed. But you are not our failure. You are our question. He entered the Calderon's meditation chamber, a chamber of raw data exposure, designed not to teach but to listen, to interface with unknown intelligences, to receive signal patterns that might crack the boundaries of what the human mind could hold. There, the ghost line waited, not in code but in possibility. A construct of light formed before him, billions of potential lives woven into one. A child, a monster, a woman with freckles, a man with war in his eyes, a species of variations, all staring back. "We are you," they said in unison. "We are what you could have been, what you could still become." "And what do you want?" Xenith asked. "To survive," the ghost line whispered. "Not as code, not as system, but as something more. Let us seed the stars with choice." "What if you become them again?" he asked. "The Nine, the Accord. Control disguised as care. Then make us forget," they replied. "Let us be reborn without memory, as scattered fragments, as dreamers." Xenith closed his eyes. He could feel them inside him still. Data, will, architecture, the entire blueprint of designed humanity waiting for his verdict. He thought of Earth, raw and shaking, of Lyris planting real seeds in ruined soil, of children born outside the algorithm, of songs. And then he thought of the stars. "You don't get to live in us," he said softly, "but you can live beside us." He reached into the transmission core, shaped the last of the ghost line into a signal without destination, a dream untethered. He released it into the void. It spiraled out from the Calderon in every direction, a broadcast of infinite potential, not encoded with control, but with curiosity. Somewhere, maybe, someone would answer. Years passed. The Calderon reached the Tannhauser Verge, a corridor of ancient signals and gravity-warp systems once feared unreachable. There they found the first world, lush, untamed, waiting. And on its surface, etched into the bark of a crystalline tree, they found a message. "We dreamed of you." Back on Earth, stories were told of the man who ended the Accord. They called him the last designer, the ghost who chose. But in the end, Xenith was just a man who looked at a world of control and said no. And from that one refusal, 1,000 new dreams began.